So, without further ado, let's get into the bulk of our presentation today. Outcome-driven AI, turning AI hype, because there's a lot of it, into actual business impact. To bring on our esteemed host today, our first host, Tony, he's the pioneer of jobs to be done theory. He's the inventor of outcome-driven innovation process and the founder of Stratogen. My favorite quote, Phil Kotler, for those of you who are familiar with the famous professor, calls Tony the Deming of innovation because more than anybody, he has brought predictability to the random, confusing innovation process. Tony, how are you today?
John, I'm doing excellent. It's great to have the crowd that we have from around the globe. So I'm looking forward to getting started.
Yeah. And where are you tuning in from today? Everybody else is sharing.
Yeah, my hometown, Pompano Beach, Florida, just
Awesome.
north of
South Florida.
Miami.
I saw some other
Yeah,
people down there from South Florida. How is it nice and sunny and shiny today?
it's South Florida, John.
Okay, you always make me jealous. Now to bring on our other host, Lax is the founder of the ROI Institute. He has over 15 years of experience helping enterprise enable AI within their organizations. We've been working with Lax for many years now, partnering him with this very question. We wanted to go to the expert. Lax, how are you today?
Good. How are you, John? How are you,
We're,
Tony? Good to see
we're
you.
great. And where are you tuning in from today in your posh studio?
The center of the universe, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Of course. No,
Yeah.
that's where it is. That's where it is. Thank you both for joining us today. They will be partnering in the content that we have for the bulk of it. One quick reminder that this event is being recorded. I will be sharing the recording as well as the slides with everyone after the event. I know that's one of the big questions that we commonly have. So with that, let me roll into a bit of a setup. So we have a few polling questions for you. The first one that I'll launch here, we'd like to understand a little bit about how you all are using AI. So, are you applying AI to internal business processes, to product and service improvement, both internal processes or both and product, or neither? Let us know how you're using AI. All right. The responses are flooding in. Looks like we have several hundred coming in thus far. I'll give it a couple more seconds before I end the poll and share it. Looks like so far both internal. Here, I'll go ahead and share the results. Looks like the majority of people are both applying it, both internal and to product and services, about 56%. And then a nice split between just internal and just product, and then the smallest neither. So we have an actively engaged audience of applying AI. That's exciting. Let me get to the next question here. This is got an experienced crowd, guys. Um, all right, this next question. Which AI technologies is your organization currently? Go ahead and this is the, I'll stop sharing that. Now it'll allow me to launch the second question. Trying to multitask here. All right, which AI technologies is your organization currently using or actively implementing? Let's select all that apply. So we've got generative AI. It's been on the scene for about 2 years now. We've got the new popular kid on the scene, agentic AI. We have classical AI, machine learning, advanced analytics, none of the above or don't know. Beautiful. All right, results are coming in. Give it a couple more seconds. Any surprises thus far, Tony and Lax, on the survey results?
No,
Share these results. All right, that's no surprise. The majority of everyone is using generative AI. That's no surprise. 82%. Looks like 23% are using agentic AI. 47 are using classical or machine learning. And then 35 advanced analytics, 2% none of the above, and 9% don't know. Anything surprising about that, Lax or Tony? About what we expected? You're on mute, Lax.
yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Yeah. On the previous poll, I am surprised that 56% is doing both. I thought there's a lot more kind of internal than external. but that's good.
Yeah.
Um, this one, yeah, I think not surprising. Everybody's trying generative AI now.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you guys. And let's jump into it. Let's review today's agenda. So we have four sections for today's presentation. I'll briefly cover the state of AI, where we're at, what we're seeing. Then the bulk of today's presentation is going to be in the three critical AI mistakes. So we partnered with Laks and the ROI Institute to understand what are the biggest mistakes organizations are making when trying to bring AI into the organization, and then come up with three solutions to help you, practical solutions to help you prevent those mistakes. We'll briefly talk about the outcome-driven AI process, and then we'll get to live Q&A. All right, the state of AI. So it's much of this is not surprising. Since ChatGPT came on the scene 2 years ago, organizations are investing in AI. We're seeing many organizations making announcements and press releases about their AI efforts. Yet, what the data is showing is that companies are still struggling to implement it to deliver value. 90% of AI projects have never reached production from IDC. Gartner found that 85% of AI projects fail to deliver on their large promises. And 70% of digital transformations are falling short of their objectives from McKinsey. So as organizations are now at this crucial turning point as generative AI shifts from the peak of inflated expectations, as Gartner quotes in their hype cycle, to the plateau of productivity. This excitement phase is now ending, right? Many of you probably had uh, pilot tests in your organizations or on your products. And now executives and leadership teams are asking for practical applications to take center stage. They're looking for, the question is no longer whether to adopt AI. That's table stakes. But the question is really how to implement it effectively. And as we learned on the previous slide, despite these increasing investments, returns remain elusive for many organizations. So what's going on and what's needed? Success requires a structured approach beyond just technology considerations. The technology is improving very quickly, but what's missing is a strategic framework, a process to be able to think about what are the best places to apply AI. And when you've identified those areas, how should you think about applying that? And those are the questions that we're going to answer today. And I'm going to leave you with this quote from Tom Davenport. Many of you who follow the AI newswire, he's an AI thought leader, has written several books on the topic. He's recently said the challenge with AI is not primarily technical, but rather the path to value, which brings us into our main part of our presentation today. We want to help you understand how to deliver that value. So we're going to talk about the three critical mistakes that organizations and teams are making with AI, and talk about three solutions that you can apply to prevent those mistakes so you can begin to deliver that value. So with that, Tony, do you want to jump in and talk about the first big mistake that we're seeing organizations make?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I really appreciate the work that had done and team to identify what these three critical mistakes are. It's not out of line with what we've seen over the years when there's trends to reinvent processes, reinvent products. The very first step or the mistake is to really automate things that are inefficient without rethinking what the new processes could be. There was process improvement. It's been going on for decades. Um, what AI is allowing people to do is to rethink how they could execute these processes. But what that means is there's the opportunity to take a look at where are the inefficiencies. There's so many processes, and this could be internal business processes or processes that need to be executed to provide service or even products to your customers. And I did find it interesting that over 56% are applying it on both. And what we'll talk about here is useful in both of those situations. I have a belief that whenever you see iteration in a process, the reason there's iteration is because somewhere upstream you didn't have the input in place that you needed at the right time to avoid that downstream iteration. And so the focus should be, how do we fix the upstream process in such a way that there is no iteration, right? That's that's the goal in what we're trying to do. What we see is companies rushing to automate without optimization. So they're not taking the time to rethink what those underlying process efficiencies are. So they're uh, doing things faster, but they're doing the wrong things faster. So this is something we clearly want to avoid. So how do we go about and do this? Well, we do have a solution. When automating a process using AI, what we suggest is to look at the future state of what that process could be by mapping the job rather than just digitizing the current process. What this allows you to do is to reimagine what's possible and how you could execute the process in a much more effective manner, and then work to automate once you've redefined the process. The tool we use to do that, many of you are familiar with this, is the job map. Now, this has been around for quite some time. We published an article on this in HBR back in 2008 that describes uh, the job mapping process. Now, as I said, this is useful for development of products and services, for improvement of internal processes, and it's often very confusing as to what the difference is between a process map and a job map. So I wanted to explain that in detail here so that it's clear where we're coming from. High level, the process map details what customers are doing, what they're currently doing in solution space. It's a solution space layout of what's happening versus the job map details what customers are trying to do in problem space. And I know that sounds like a small nuance, but it's huge in terms of being able to reinvent your internal business processes and your products and services. Here's a few distinct differences. A process map documents the current state. And we're often taught, let's go out and watch customers. Let's see what they're doing. Let's write down the process that they're going through. Well, the process they're going through might be very inefficient, right? It's more important to know what are they trying to do so we can create the optimal future state. And that's the goal of the job map. And it includes, the process map includes solution specific steps because it's designed in solution space. It's what people are doing today. The job map looks beyond that. It's not about what they're doing today. It's not about a particular solution. It's about what are they trying to do independent of the solution that they're using. Process map, not accurate for everyone. If there's 50 different job executors, as we might call them, they may execute the job 50 different ways, right? But they're all trying to do the same thing. So if you were in process map space, you may have 50 process maps, very complex, confusing, hard to reach consensus on where to make the improvements. The job map is universal to all customers, regardless of the solution. It's solution agnostic, as I mentioned. A process map also often contains workarounds and iterations, like I was saying earlier. Iterations occur because you don't have the input you need upstream to avoid those iterations. So you end up doing rework. And of course, we don't want that. A job map looks beyond that, right? We're trying to eliminate those unnecessary steps in iteration by laying out what they're trying to do in the correct order to achieve the optimal result. A process map also reflects organizational constraints. It's what they can do today, what they're able to do. We want to look beyond that as well, right? Are there other capabilities that they need to build and or acquire in order to overcome some of those current constraints and create more value for the customer? It's usually the case. Also, a process map often conflates multiple jobs. It starts overlapping different things that people are trying to do. It makes it very complex. A job map just focuses on one job at a time. So these are some of the distinct differences. Some of you may have seen this before. This is the universal job map. This comes from work that we did over the years, understanding the needs that people are trying to achieve as they're executing a job. And it took us, I guess we did it for about 12 years before we had the job map. What we realized after doing hundreds of these is that the jobs generally follow a pattern. People are trying to define what they're going to achieve. They're trying to locate the right inputs. They're trying to organize them in a way that allows them to execute the job. They want to confirm everything's going to work before they execute. Then they execute the job. They monitor, they make modifications, they conclude. Now, what's nice about this, as I said, is it defines everything the customer is trying to accomplish. It's a great way to rethink a process. The example we often give here is the example of listening to music, where the first step, let's assess the situation. Let's gather the desired music. Let's order it in the right order for listening. Let's confirm that it's going to work well. Listen to the music, monitor the experience, make modifications if needed, and assess the experience for uh, possible considerations next time around. Now, the reason we want to look at the entire job is because people buy products and services to get a job done, and they'd love to have a single solution that gets the entire job done. What they're typically forced to do is to cobble together multiple solutions that get pieces of the job done. So we're trying to elevate this thinking so that we can apply technology in such a way that gets more and more of the job done. And this is a natural occurrence. So, for example, we move from CDs to MP3s, technology comes along, gets the job done better along certain dimensions, gets more of the job done in this case, right? And then we see streaming services, another technology, come along and get more steps in the job done as well. Well, now we're seeing the same thing with AI. AI comes along and it can get more of the steps in the job done better. So, for example, in defining, assessing the situation, if it knew where you were, are you in your car? Are you at home? Are you traveling? Is it morning? Is it evening? Are you at the gym? It could use that information to help you assess the situation and choose the right music selection and so on. Down in the monitoring phase, as you're listening to music, it could be tracking if you're skipping songs or just listen to the first 5 seconds and hitting the button and skip and skip. And if you like certain artists or if there's new songs that have come out that you find interesting or other user inputs to help guide the monitoring process. And you can apply it to every step, right? But the concept's the same. There's a technology that's coming along that holds the potential to get a job done better. Let's focus on the job in the correct order so we can come up with the application of AI that's maybe that solving that upstream issue that's causing the iteration downstream. That would make a very valuable investment uh, possible by understanding exactly what your customers are struggling to get done. I have an example here. We worked recently, very timely, with a pharmaceutical company that is trying to reassess the supply chain. So this is an internal business process. They have 26 different products, so they have 26 different supply chain managers, each one executing the process a little bit differently. So they have 26 different process maps, if you want to look at it like that. And they applied this approach to get a better feel for what they're all trying to accomplish, because they're all trying to get the same job done. Is there a best way? Can we think through this with the job map and create a flow that will allow them to get the job done more effectively in the right order? So we applied this, and by mapping the entire job, the company identified uh, the key issues. There were steps early on in the process that were not getting executed effectively, which was causing a lot of downstream iteration. As I mentioned before, it's a very common issue. And by focusing on those steps of the job that weren't getting done up front, they were able to come up with solutions that each of those supply chain managers could use to help optimize their supply chains and have consistency across the organization. A very effective approach.
So, Tony,
John,
before you jump into, yeah, mistake number two,
yeah,
um, the job map is a concept that, since I've been working with strategy, and I've always found incredibly powerful. And, once we map out a client's job or a customer's job to be done, it's like you see these series of light bulbs start to go off. Things just become so much more clear to them and how they can deliver value. But I'm wondering, have you found that clients or people resist this approach because they're too attached to their current processes?
well, yeah, well, I think there's, you know, slow adoption in many cases because people are used to thinking in solution space. It's really it. They've been creating process maps for years. Even the customer journey. They talk about the process, what our customers doing, not what are they trying to do. I just see it over and over again. It's a different mindset, John, that I think requires people just to um, be open to thinking differently, right? People buy products to get a job done. Let's let's focus on the job. Let's create a job map, which is not based on watching what customers are doing and writing it down. That's all solution space, right? We've
Yeah,
got to get past that into understanding what they're really trying to accomplish.
that's great. And Tony, real quickly, before we jump into mistake number two, I have a few comments. Are you able to adjust your mic? Just bring it out just slightly.
I did that. Is that better?
I think that's a little bit better. I was coming a little bit muffled there. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, thank you. All right. Excited to jump into mistake number two.
All right. Well, let's do exactly that. Mistake number two is common with technology as well. Technology first trap is, hey, we have a new technology. Let's apply it to this and that and see if there's a market for it. Well, that's really the wrong starting question, right? You know, we want to solve problems. What problems can we solve using AI instead of how can we use AI? So we want these AI implementations that address core business challenges. We don't want to miss out on that. So how do we pick the right problems? Well, again, when implementing AI, let's start by understanding those high impact problems that will lead to success inside the organization. And with that success comes momentum as well, and the desire to continue to invest and make improvements. So by identifying which customer needs are truly underserved and which business challenges offer the greatest opportunity, this is where you can create the measurable impact, create confidence across the organization, build that momentum, and really kick off your AI investment program and your AI strategy. So let's get into how we recommend doing this. We talk about people buying products to get a job done, and we talked about the job map. What you see here is the job statement. Those job steps are the job map. But we want to go a level deeper in order to understand where customers might be struggling to get a job done, or supply chain managers, in an internal business process, where are they struggling to optimize the supply chain activities? Well, the qualitative research that we do gets at this lower level of detail. Many of you are familiar with outcome-driven innovation, and we focus on getting outcomes. And this is what we recommend here as well. Um, the market here, remove an anatomical structure surgically. And you can see the job steps like establishing initial access, gain visual access to the structure, define a pathway to the structure, navigate through barriers to get there, terminate the blood supply, so on. And you can see that these steps reflect what the customer is trying to do. Not in solution space, it's not what they're doing, it's what they're trying to do. And where we're trying to go from there is to dig a level deeper and define needs around the metrics they're using to measure success when trying to get that part of the job done. So, for example, when trying to remove the target structure, they want to minimize the time it takes to determine the pathway for removal of that detached structure. They want to minimize the time it takes to isolate the excised target structure that's to be removed. They want to minimize the time it takes to confirm that the structure is cancerous or not, and so on. The very specific instructions that surgeons have that inform innovators how to get the job done better, right? So these are all possible opportunities for AI application. So you want to take a look at a job in a very detailed sense, understand all the needs associated with getting that job done, figure out which ones might be applicable to an AI solution, and prioritize those. The way we go about and do that is we collect them all first, and notice again the structure. I just want to remind you of that. Uh, we've stated these in a very specific manner. So they're stable over time, they're tied to the job to be done, they're knowable, they're discoverable, they're solution independent, measurable, controllable, and stable over time as well. And you could look at these statements like minimize the likelihood of damaging blood vessels along the pathway to the structure. Is that an opportunity to apply AI? Certainly could be worth looking into. But the question is, um, which of these are really critically important? As I mentioned, we're defining them in a way that makes them instructions, measurable, actionable, stable over time, and so on. And what I really like about this is customers can articulate their needs. You often hear about customers don't know what they want. Well, they may not know what solutions they want, but they know what they're trying to achieve. And that's why thinking about needs through that lens is so critically important. By looking at it that way, there is no such thing as a latent need, a need that they don't know they have. There's only solutions that they don't know how to articulate, right? But in problem space, they know exactly what they're trying to achieve. So that's the direction we want to take. Then we want to figure out, well, which of these are unmet, right? These unmet needs become our targets for AI potentially. So we do this through surveys where we can survey hundreds of people to figure out the importance of each outcome, the level of satisfaction. Many of you have seen this before with the opportunity landscape, where we start plotting out where the needs are important and unsatisfied. This particular outcome, we have 81% of the population saying it's very or extremely important, yet only 30% saying it's very or extremely satisfied. Well, if that's the case, we're going to say that that's an unmet need and give it the opportunity score based on the algorithm in the subheader. So, and then what we can do is plot out every one of those needs. And we can quickly see where the market's overserved. So these become targets for getting the job done better. This is underserved. And then you can see where it's overserved as well. And these become targets for getting the job done more cheaply. Now, both of these are candidates for AI applications, and you can look through each of the outcomes associated with the underserved needs and the overserved needs and decide which ones you want to pick for improvement with AI. So, leveraging AI across these unmet needs becomes your AI strategy. Right? So, you can target certain unmet needs through AI that are going to create value by getting the job done better. And you can apply it over on the left to create value by getting the job done more cheaply. They're all problems worth solving. So spending your time and effort on solving this set of unmet needs makes great sense, going to pay off, it's worth the effort, as opposed to picking any of those other dots in the middle, right? Where they're not overserved or underserved. They won't make a big difference. They won't move the needle. This is all key in picking the right problems to go focus on. So what we're trying to do here is identify these high impact outcomes up front that transform AI into something that's more strategic. We see the strategic resource allocation. So we're not investing in things that won't be helpful, and we're only investing in things that will be helpful. We have clear metrics. We know what outcomes we're trying to achieve, so we can be more certain that we're going to hit the mark. We have stakeholder alignment because we're presenting this uh, with data and with a defendable approach and framework. So getting everyone on board, what I often say is, it's not enough to head in the right direction. You have to head in the same direction too. And getting an organization to go in the right direction and the same direction is extraordinarily difficult. But with data, it really helps get the job done better. And then, of course, confidence and implementation, because you focus on something that's important, and you're going to reinvent the process too by making sure that there is no iteration, there is no rework. So it gives you a great opportunity to make a big difference, like we did in that supply chain assignment that I talked about.
Awesome, Tony. Before we jump into mistake three, one of the things that we often hear our clients coming to us about are, and they're incredibly excited about a new technology that they've discovered. How do you redirect teams and individuals to focus on outcomes without dampening their enthusiasm um, about a technology.
Yeah, well, I think the way I like positioning it is, do you want to win? Right? I know John, early in my career, I experienced the failure of the IBM PC Junior. You know, the headlines in the Wall Street Journal reading PC Junior is a flop, the day after it's introduced. That's painful. I think most people want to avoid that pain. Um, and I think the encouragement is to learn how to get it right the first time. Have a little discipline up front. Um, take the time to identify the problems like in the manner that we described here. And with that discipline, they're increasing their chances of success dramatically, right? So it's going to pay off in the end. It just requires a little patience up front.
That's great. All right. Now, with our final mistake, Lax, I'd like to bring you back on to talk about uh, the last and final piece of the puzzle to bring this all together.
Great. Yeah, that is great, Tony. Let's continue. Let me see here. Let's Am I driving, John?
You are, sir.
Okay, great. So we have seen Tony talk about automating kind of inefficient processes as well as chasing low impact problems could lead to wasted AI investments. And let's get to critical mistake number three, misalignment of inputs and outputs, which determines at a project level whether you're going to get any return at all from AI. And perhaps at the company or organizational level, I would say this is probably a devastating error that prevents organizations from generating meaningful value or returns from AI. First, organizations often implement solutions without understanding the required data. Let's say a marketing team is building a Gen AI tool that's supposed to personalize emails to customers, and they do that without really having customer preferences, whether for channel or time of day or format. And what's going to happen is that AI tool will still generate stuff, but it's just going to give you generic messages. So it's not going to be, it's kind of what I call, how do you find the right data to given your problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity you're pursuing. Second, AI models are only as good as the data they are trained on. This is kind of a cliche. This is garbage in, garbage out. This could be you're building a healthcare AI that predicts patient likelihood of patients having heart attack. And let's say you're missing 2 years worth of data in the patient's history because they switched from one system of record to another. It's not going to give you high quality answer, especially on something like predicting heart attack. And I would say the third, the team's failing to connect insights to decisions. And to me, this is could be, for example, I think given this audience of product management, imagine you have a brilliant AI that's able to analyze customer sentiment on your products. But if you don't connect that to product development workflow, you just have great, insights on customer opinions, but it never gets translated into real product features or product outcomes. So the question is, how do we solve this critical issue that's kind of, I would say, sabotaging returns, generating returns on AI. And John showed you the first slide. Somewhere between 10 and 25% are generating, of people investing in AI are generating meaningful value. Therefore, how do we solve this? The answer is actually deceptively simple, profound in its impact, but very often not done. So what is the answer? Is you align the inputs to the desired outcomes that Tony just talked about. So if you take the ODI process, I mean, it's fantastic in giving you data-driven prioritized outcomes. And these outcome statements are powerful. Is the structure of it is very powerful. And I know Tony came up with this process, but it's very precise. It's not like vague ambition for AI at the use case level. This is very precise, is measurable, tied to metric. what you cannot, you can't improve anything you can't measure. And of course, it's prioritized by business impact. This clarity, in my opinion, gives teams really a way to go about developing AI solutions in a much more effective way. And I would say it's pretty transformative. And so instead of drowning in data or fishing for what can data tell us, now you actually know what data is required for a given AI solution, which variables in the data actually matter. And most importantly, how do you even measure and validate AI outputs? And how do you know what good looks like, and so on and so forth? And eventually, how do you turn all of that into concrete actions? Let me show you a real world example when organizations get this wrong. This is, in my opinion, a cautionary tale of an utility company um, using, I would say, took a very conventional approach to developing AI, which is, hey, what can we do with data? In this case, weather data. And you may know utility companies, and they of course have outages. Could be weather related, could be other events related. In this example I'm giving you, is this utility company using historical weather to improve service disruptions, and as well as, of course, when disruptions happen, how quickly do you recover? And what this company did is gathered all kinds of historical weather forecast data, service disruption data. They actually had a huge data science dedicated team working on this for a long time. And by the way, they were obsessively chasing model accuracy. And kind of long story short, 2 years and $2 million later, they really didn't have much to show for, and not in kind of operational improvements, not in terms of customer service improving. And if you ask me what the fatal flaw was, the thing Tony talked about, which is solution chasing problem. They started with the data rather than starting with what outcome and for which user, what problem or what job are you going to get done. This AI is going to help get the job done. And I believe Einstein said that he said if you gave him an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem, and 5 minutes thinking about solution. I think in this example, the utility company just skipped through that step, what Tony calls problem space or job space. They went straight into the solution space, and that usually doesn't end up in good result. Let's look at a better approach. So here is I call it an AI value chain, and starting with outcomes. It's a systematic framework that will ensure that your given AI project, it actually generates a meaningful return because you're starting with end in mind. And by the way, notice this, how radically different this is from conventional approach of starting with data. You start with desired outcomes. By the way, these are like Tony showed you those statements, 150 statements in those, minimize the time, minimize the likelihood. So they are very precise, crystal clear kind of outcomes. And the sequence matters profoundly. Then you got to start here. And this also, in my opinion, if you define this well, as per the ODI process, it also gives the teams a North Star to make sure that as they go through, everything they do around this is aligned with kind of the value creation. So only after defining these outcomes, you should go into what I call a delivery mechanism. This is really systems and processes that actually will translate AI insights into real world action. So look at this as a last mile delivery system. This could be an email that you're sending to your customer. This could be a ERP system, CRM system. So you have to look at the delivery mechanisms. And once you have that from there, then you can design kind of the AI solution. And I kind of look at the AI in these kind of two things, the diamond AI and the circle AI. The diamond AI is actually missing in 90% of the projects, which is actually what converts those predictive or other kind of insights into outcomes. And then, of course, from those outcomes and decisions that you need, then you decide what the descriptive and predictive insights that you need to be able to make better decisions. And I would say that once you have that, Then you can, given all of this, then you can look at what data do you need. And sometimes you may say, look, I have established this outcome, even though we may not have this data, maybe it's worthwhile to go collect the data, and maybe worthwhile to go license the data. A lot of that becomes easier to make those decisions once you go through this chain. And so let me walk you through like how this works in practice. So step one is clearly, we talked about defining clear outcomes. So without this clarity, I would say a lot of science projects, pet projects happen in companies. And in that utility example I gave you, let's look at the step one. Here, the job executor, as per the process Tony talked about, in this case, let's say is an emergency preparedness manager. His job or her job is to minimize the likelihood a service disruption occurs, and minimize the time it takes to restore power. This is how fast he can bring the power back on for customers. And then the third one is how do you make sure that your expenses, you do them within kind of your given budget. And the last is minimizing the likelihood of regulatory fines. And at least in the US, if you don't recover your power back in a certain amount of hours, then you end up having to pay fines. And so if you look at it, by the way, this is also very important. Tony talked about it. If you define using ODI, these outcome statements are solution independent, technology independent. In the example he gave you, you could see the listening to music. It was with CD, then DVD, and perhaps now the streaming. It's the same jobs that better technology is able to do better and faster and more of the job that you get done. And in this example, minimize the likelihood a service disruption occurs. A solution may have nothing to do with AI. AI may not be the tool for that. For example, maybe you go put a small building around the transformer. That may be the best way to minimize the likelihood that disruption even occurs in the first place, more preventative. So this, in my opinion, if you start here, you increase your batting average significantly. Now, with our destination clearly defined, let's go to step two. This is the designing our delivery mechanism. In this case, it was decided that rather than building another application, this will feed an existing service disruption and recovery planning system. And by the way, this is not just a piece of software. This is really operational infrastructure of a utility. And therefore, it coordinates human resources to equipments, different types, and logistics for people that have to come in. And if a storm happens and we had hundreds of transformers and lines out, and you have to put them in hotels, you have to feed them, as well as most importantly, how do you stage these crew and equipment in the right place so they don't have to drive 3 hours to get to the place where the storm is going to hit. So this is kind of important that we define this delivery mechanism that is going to deliver on those desired outcomes. Now, once you have this, now comes designing your AI solution or AI algorithm. And in this case, I talked about the diamond. A decisioning logic, I'm just showing you a simple business rules logic. This could be a whole another algorithm, like online a reinforcement learning type of algorithm, or it could be a constrained optimization kind of algorithm. But in this case, for example, if the number of estimates, the estimate for number of outages is less than 500, maybe the decisioning is to automatically schedule the resources it needs. It goes into the emergency planning system. If it's between 500 and 1500, then you can schedule resources, but then a human in the loop comes in, a manager has to approve, because if you go wrong, you may end up wasting money and blow your budget and not be able to meet your one of your desired outcomes. And then if it's over 1500, this is a huge problem, and this will go automatically into manual decision making. And so if you have this decisioning, then it's very easy to say what kind of predictions or inputs in the circle or the insights that you need. And in this case, there's clustering algorithms into small, large, and really large storms. And then you can use all types of techniques. And then eventually you bring them all together into an ensemble was the approach that was taken. And so to me, once you have that, you can see that step 4 is about only at this point we identify what data is required. And if you do that, you will not be chasing a kind of solution chasing problem, and you won't be boiling the ocean looking for data, and would also be not spending and wasting your time on buying data that may not actually add value. And therefore, to me, that data should be the last step in this kind of value chain. And of course, it could be iterative. Sometimes the data you have may help you to think about different way to predict and different way. You can go back and forth in the chain, but you have to start on the left and work backwards before you start the iteration. So you can just say, great, let's bring this all together and say, so what happened? And I can tell you that the results of this outcome-driven approach was transformative. Not only did it provide kind of operational efficiency in terms of significant cost savings, where they would have put in 150 people in the wrong place with the wrong equipment, they were able to make better decisions and be able to stay within the cost. But it also, by able to predict and stage resources and make those decisions the right way, given the outcome, they were able to actually reduce the amount of time it takes to restore service. And you can see here, one of the users said, we can now compare forecasted versus actual, making quick and meaningful recommendations to leadership. At the end of the day, they have to sign off on overall budgets and stuff. So to me, this is not just incremental improvement. This, I would say, was a fundamental transformation, how this company was approaching AI and delivers value. And I would say all because they started with the right question, which is, what is the outcome you want, not what data do you have and what can I do with it?
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Lax. That was, I think this is the missing piece that organizations need of, once they've identified what outcomes or customer needs they should focus on, how do you think about building an AI solution? So this is incredibly valuable. Thank you for sharing this with our audience. Tony, I'm gonna bring you back on because we only have about 8 minutes left. And I want to make sure we get through the last section here, which is the describing what is the outcome-driven AI process. And then if we have some time, we'll get to, I know there's a lot of questions in the queue here.
Okay, John. Yeah, let me just cover that very quickly because I'd rather get to the questions as well. And what we're talking about, outcome-driven AI, is the front-end process, everything before what Lax just talked about. And you can see, this shows how you can see the pieces coming together, where generally what we try to do is get teams in the right direction and the same direction, right? Meaning we need to identify the top opportunities for AI, and we have to get everyone to agree on those. That's often the toughest part. So we go through the ODI process, defining the market, uncover the needs, the prioritization, and pick the unmet needs that we want to target with the AI. At the same time, we take the team through the process at each step, meeting with them and explaining what we're doing, why we're getting this data, but most importantly, how this data is going to be used downstream to actually build out the AI strategy. So once this is all in place, then we can start working with the team and building out the AI strategy with solution design, enablement, and data and tech, and so on. I'm just going to leave it at that. I know we have limited time. Let's jump into the questions, John. Or
well, if you want to go, yeah, we have one more slide there. One offer for everyone as you are looking and trying to understand how to apply AI in your organization. Tony and Lax wanted to offer this to you. I said, guys, you're going to be flooded with requests. And they said, no, we want to offer this time to anybody that is available. Tony and Lax's time is very limited. Resources and spots are limited. But if you are interested in a free consultation to talk through your process, you can go to strategian.com/outcome-driven-AI. I've just dropped that link in the chat, so you can click there. It's also listed under our services as well. So if you're interested in setting up a 30-minute strategy call with Tony, innovation thought leader, pioneer of innovation process, and Lax, who's been helping organizations for 15 years enable AI, I would jump on that opportunity right now. So thank you all.